There are 12 open civil lawsuits against Windsor police seeking tens of millions of dollars. Tonight, Jason Vio takes a closer look at the numbers. Travel between Canada and the United States, that closure is extended into August. 30 more days of travel limited to only essential workers. A live look outside now. No warnings or watches in effect here in Windsor. Just a relatively cool 27 outside. Nick Sirkovich joins us with the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for watching. There are currently 12 open civil lawsuits against the Windsor Police Service, totaling tens of millions of dollars. Yesterday, we told you about one of them. A 26-year-old man claims an officer assaulted him. Tonight, a closer look at the numbers and how this type of legal action can affect change. The CBC's Jason Vio brings us this exclusive story.
Right now, the Windsor Police Service is facing 12 civil lawsuits totaling more than $46 million. Those include allegations of collusion, malicious prosecution, assault, and negligence.
I think we need to consider the dollar amounts in the context of the calls for defunding the police that we're hearing at the moment, right? One of the concerns that we have is the fact that too much money is being spent on policing, and the police are being asked to do too many different things. And the less we have police presence in the lives of people where that it doesn't need to be, the less likely we are to have the types of assaults and violence that lead to these lawsuits.
When it comes to taxpayer money spent on police-related legal payouts, that's $1.2 million. It involves 64 cases between 2006 and 2019, and that doesn't include what the city's insurers paid out. But some have noticed a lot of change over the years, specifically in the last decade. Craig Allen has been a civil lawyer in Windsor for more than 25 years. He's sued Windsor Police many times over those years on behalf of clients and says he's noticed a culture shift among local cops.
I don't see the same numbers of particular racist based complaints that I did before. I'm not suggesting for a second that it's over or that we should be celebrating.
Allen says a big turning point was this security camera video. Back in 2010, Detective David Van Busker can be seen beating Dr. Taisir Abu Hassan. It was an unprovoked attack that led to several officers, including a superior, trying to cover this up. He's sued for $14.2 million. However, that settlement remains confidential. His lawyer says making these instances public through legal action can help affect change.
Even good police officers don't speak up when they see a police officer doing something wrong. And that, to me, is where the change has to come. If police officers are not going to hold each other accountable for their actions, then you're always going to have these incidents.
She also says making police forces more diverse can help reduce misconduct because those officers learn from each other about different perspectives and ways to approach people in the community. CBC News made several attempts to speak with the Windsor Police Service, Chief Pam Mizuno, as well as Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins, who is the police board chair. They either declined to comment or didn't respond to our requests. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
CBC News has confirmed that the agreement to restrict travel across the Canada-U.S. border will be extended into August. It comes as the United States struggles to contain COVID-19. David Cochran reports.
The border closure has been in place since March and extended each and every time it was up for renewal. Now another 30 days until the end of August.
We recognize that the situation continues to be complex in the United States in regards to COVID-19.
The extension comes after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump by phone on Monday, and as public health officials warn that the situation in the United States is far from under control.
We have an average about 300 cases per day in Canada. I think in the U.S., quite a bit more, 60,000 plus cases are reported every day. Certainly myself, from a strictly public health perspective, we recognize that the priority in many ways is to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Day by day, state by state, the U.S. continues to set grim records of new COVID cases. Recent polls suggest at least 80% of Canadians want the border to stay shut. There's a sense the U.S. has lost control.
If we take examples of countries who managed well this crisis, in the list of those who did well, you won't find United States. They are still deep in it, and we have to remain very careful. We are speaking about the health and lives of many people here.
So another extension of another month of essential travel only, and every indication it will stay that way for the foreseeable future. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And though the border closure has been extended, some Ontario truck drivers say that's not enough. They're speaking out about what they're witnessing on their trips to the United States. As Katerina Georgieva reports, they say many people aren't taking the pandemic seriously.
What I witnessed in Texas floored me.
This long-haul truck driver from Shannonville recently shared this video on social media. A warning to Canadian government officials to keep the border closed to non-essential travel. Jeff Henderson says in the States, many aren't wearing masks or physical distancing.
Nobody cares, and it's dangerous, very dangerous. And if Canada opens those borders, they're going to see a spike.
In the last few months, Jeff Henderson has traveled to New York, Massachusetts, Ohio, and most recently, Texas.
I just couldn't believe everyone's standing outside. Everyone is congregating like nothing is happening.
He says extending the border closure by 30 days isn't long enough. He wants it closed until at least the new year, and he's not alone.
I'm praying they don't open the borders. That would just make everything up here that much worse.
Leanne Steves and her husband are both long-haul truck drivers from Barrie, and they travel to California every week. She says it's been scary.
They're traveling down there. They don't wear masks. It's like everything's normal. It's like they don't care.
California, Texas, and Florida are seeing major surges in COVID-19 cases. The United States is the worst affected country in terms of infections. Premier Doug Ford has said he doesn't want to see the border reopened anytime soon either. The Canadian Trucking Alliance says COVID-19 has introduced new challenges and concerns for all workers, including those in the trucking industry. CTA's best practices document deals with all these matters and concerns, and truck drivers across the country are utilizing these methods to keep themselves and fellow Canadians safe.
It's something very scary.
But Henderson says he won't be taking any more jobs to the States until things get better. And he knows that means his income will suffer.
It's going to take a hit, but I'm not going to put myself in that position again. I can't. It's too stressful.
Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Toronto.
A local MPP is denouncing the provincial government's decision in outsourcing a private company to take over the COVID-19 farm testing in Windsor, Essex. Essex NDP MPP Taras Natashak says that the company is linked to the PC party and raises many red flags. For more on this, the CBC's Tamina Aziz joins us live. Tamina, what are some of his concerns?
Chris, there are quite a few. As we know, the Ford government has offered a contract to Switch Health, a private for-profit company, to conduct testing among farm workers. Natashak says he has a problem with the fact that it employed Jeff Silverstein, the former communications director of PC Party Caucus Services and creator of Ontario News Now, which Doug Ford uses to relay messages to the public. Silverstein was hired as a lobbyist for Switch Health. Natashak is demanding the answers to these questions.
Who are these people? Was a contract tendered? Was it sole sourced? What are the terms of the contract? How much are we paying? What are the oversight and accountability measures built into, essentially the privatization of testing for COVID-19 on farms?
He says the Minister of Health ignored him when he asked these questions. He says the company is new and little is known about it, and that transparency and accountability is gone when using a third-party company. Instead, he wants to see a coordinated approach where trained nurses take on the task of mobile testing. CBC News reached out to Dr. Alison McGeer in Toronto. She says there is nothing fundamentally wrong with hiring a private company as long as migrant workers are getting a good service and protection.
What's clearly important is that it's coordinated with the overall plan for protection of migrant workers and maintaining the farming business. So as long as someone from public health is in charge and directing it, then who exactly is doing the swabbing may not matter all that much.
The local health unit says it has no concerns about Switch Health and that the company will be able to conduct testing safely. I also reached out to Colleen Flood, a health law and policy expert. She says while there can be problems with private delivery and concerns about the quality, when there is insufficient capacity in the public system, then bringing in extra capacity through a private company, at least during a pandemic, is reasonable. Chris.
Thanks for this, Tamina. The CBC's Tamina Aziz live tonight. It's been nearly a month since anti-Black racism marches took over the riverfront in Windsor, but the chair of Windsor's Diversity Committee says that he feels that the committee is being ignored. The marches and rallies were met by calls for inclusion from municipal leaders, with Windsor's mayor and police chief part of a discussion about anti-Black racism just last month. But Windsor's own Diversity Committee wasn't made aware of the discussion. The chair of the committee, which advises mayor and council issues of discrimination, says that he hasn't heard from the mayor since the protests started. Here's part of my interview with him from earlier today.
Somehow it bothers me because the city set up the committee. The city has a diversity officer that works for the city. The city has a police diversity officer who sits on the same committee. And from what I understand, it was his responsibility to assemble, or at least he said that the city asked him to assemble the members of that group. And for him to not remember the committee that he sits on, that is an advisory committee to the city, that's interesting to me.
What do you think it says when the city is doing these surveys, asking for more input from the community, holding meetings like this, but not using this committee that they've struck together to handle issues like this? What does it say to you as the chair?
Well, I'm going to strike out for a second here. Coming from the African community, for example, coming from the whole network of the African community worldwide, I think I'm going to borrow a statement from somebody who suggested that that Africans have been on an open-air concentration camp. And I borrow that statement as it regards the notion to set up committees that look like they're getting ready to do something, and it almost looks like a showcase where it's not really doing anything. It's toothless, basically. In my opinion, I would think that the intention is to strengthen it and to allow it to be more effective. But to completely ignore it and ignore the very office that they set up, that they pay somebody to work from, I think is interesting. I think it goes into the whole notion of systemic racism that we talk about. And some of us may pretend like we don't know what it means or how it's applied. But this is one of the ways. You create a smokescreen organization, in my opinion, and you intentionally neglect it when you want to do something in the area for which it was created.
Now, after that interview, I asked the mayor's office if they had a comment or if Mayor Drew Dilkens was available for an interview. Here's the response that was sent through the chief of staff. The city of Windsor is proud to be among the most diverse communities in the country, but recognize that we all have much more work to do as an organization, administration, and society. The City of Windsor's Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, which was started as a result of Mayor Dilkens' advocacy several years ago, will undertake meaningful activity under the second phase of its approach in the very near future. The statement went on to say that what has become very clear throughout these important discussions is that a single committee or conversation will not break down the barriers that remain within our society's institutions, and Mayor Dilkens will continue to devote himself to this issue. You can hear more of my conversation with the chair tomorrow morning on Windsor Morning. Windsor's mayor spoke before a provincial committee this morning with big concerns over how the city will recover from its nearly $30 million deficit.
As things are being done to test and to isolate these folks who need to get better, that there is the most efficient and effective response put in place so that everyone is aware of what's going on and that we can take care and handle this situation in the most appropriate way. And unfortunately, that is not happening today.
Dilkins testified in front of the province's Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs. He says tax increases aren't something the city wants to consider to fill the budget gap, and the only way to do so is through full support from both upper levels of government.
We receive about $12 million annually from the casino operation. That is our city's share. And so just by order of magnitude in terms of a property tax increase, if we had to raise property taxes to make up that shortfall, that's 3% just on the top, and so it's significant. It's not a. It's certainly not an. It's not something that we hope to get into.
It's been a long time since many of us have had our hair cut, as you can tell by my luscious locks I've been rocking for the last couple of months. Ever since the pandemic hit, hair salons and barbershops have been closed. And it's only in the last couple of weeks since we entered stage 2 that those shops have been allowed to open up again. I will be getting my hair cut shortly, I promise. But Windsor Morning host Tony Doucette, well, he beat me to the barber chair.
I think we can actually start with something new. And improve on the mullet.
You don't like the mullet?
No. Reminds me of the old days.
I thought it kind of looked like a hockey player there.
Since there's no hockey, at least we have hair to look at.
The haircut took a little longer than usual, about 45 minutes in the chair versus half an hour, Tony says. Now, Bernardo says that with hair being a bit longer, there's opportunity for people to try out some new styles. I was hoping he'd go with the mohawk, but it looks like the classic look on Tony there. During quarantine, hair has grown about 2 inches on average. But some clients, they've come in with up to 6 inches of growth. Tony was very happy with the final product. We are as well, and look at that outside. Another day where it's manageable, bearable, as Nick Sirkovich likes to tell us, relatable to last year. We're in those average temperatures, but we'll figure out what the week has in store when he gives us the forecast next. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Nick Cerkovich. Nick, it was that average kind of mode today. A nice cool breeze sitting out by the riverfront wasn't too bad. It is just the opposite of last week.
Yeah, I hope you're not getting used to it.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, because it is changing again. We're going back to that, just
okay.
to tell you right off the start. But, you know, I mean, so many times through the winter, we hear about people complaining that it's so cold and where's summer? And then summer gets here and it's too hot. Anyway, it's this up and down. The up and down today, we're back around the seasonal mark, but by the end of the week, I'll tell you, we're going to be up to humidex values that will be in excess of 40 once again. I'll show you that in the forecast in just a sec. Let's talk about cloud cover. Not a whole lot to speak of today. We are watching a system, though, that's moving in from the west, and that'll be our weather maker heading into Thursday. For today, though, a little bit of cloud cover this evening, but for the most part, we've had some good sunshine. Temperature-wise, sitting at 28 degrees. That is spot on the seasonal mark with the humidex. Feels about 32. That's pretty reasonable weather, but it is changing as we move through the next few days and into the weekend. We're looking at temperatures rising, but also the humidity rising as well. Overnight forecast and into tomorrow morning, look for sunny skies, basically sunshine through tomorrow afternoon as well. As we head through Thursday, though, Thursday morning, we start to see some showers moving in from that system I showed you on the radar there, and then into Thursday afternoon. Good chance we're going to see some thunderstorms with this as well. Not a huge rainfall event, but we are going to see some on and off showers and thunderstorms throughout the day on Thursday. There's a general look at rainfall totals. And I say this often, certainly for the summertime, don't put too much stock in the exact number. Look for the range, because we're talking about thunderstorms. A shift in a storm by 5 or 10 kilometers can make a big difference in the amount of rain you see in your neighborhood. And these models just can't resolve that fine a detail. So generally, about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain, but locally could see more. Overnight tonight, 19 degrees in Windsor as we move through tomorrow, 32 degrees with a humidex of 38. Long range forecast, temperatures sitting above the 30 mark on all days, but we start to increase the humidity by tomorrow, humidex of 38. By Saturday, Sunday, humidex of 44, maybe 45. So wow, it's coming back.
It's getting better. It's getting better. You mentioned the difference between the winter when we're all freezing and then in the summer when we're all that kind of yin and the yang here. But you know, it's interesting to hear some of the people talk about that humidity effect, the kind of just swamps you down yet. Is that something that is normal as well?
You can't breathe in it. What's that?
Is that like something that we're normally feeling as bad as it is now, or are you starting to see that start to change too?
No, this is normal for us. You know, it's summer.
We just got to be better. We're just going to take it on.
Exactly.
That's the big thing. Thanks for this, Nick.
Cheers.
Northern Italy has found a way to slow the damage of climate change, and it involves a huge blanket. That's next. The U.S. carried out its first federal execution today in 17 years. Convicted murderer Daniel Lee was put to death despite objections by his victims' relatives. After days of legal wrangling, an overnight Supreme Court ruling cleared the way for Lee's early morning execution by lethal injection at a federal prison in Indiana. Lee was convicted of murdering an Arkansas gun dealer, his wife, and her 8-year-old daughter in 1996 in a plot to build a whites-only nation. But their relatives opposed his execution and had argued for life imprisonment instead. Several states carry out executions, but the federal government has not done so since 2003. The U.S. Justice Department reinstated federal death penalty last July. The UK has decided to exclude Huawei from the nation's new high-speed mobile phone network over concerns about spying.
The government agrees with the National Cybersecurity Centre's advice. The best way to secure our networks is for operators to stop using new affected Huawei equipment to build the UK's future 5G networks.
British telecoms operators have been given 7 years to completely remove the equipment already in Britain's 5G network, and they must stop buying 5G equipment from the Chinese telecom giant by this year end. The decision would also delay the UK's rollout of the high-speed technology and add costs of about 3.4 billion Canadian dollars. Many Western governments are wary of Huawei's direct links to the Chinese government. The U.S. has been threatening to stop intelligence sharing with its allies, including Canada, if they use Huawei's technology. It may not be possible to completely stop climate change, but in northern Italy, there's a serious effort to slow down the damage. 100,000 square meters of white geotextile sheets have been placed over a glacier to reduce the melting of ice. They were put there in June to reflect sunlight during the summer months in an attempt to lower the temperature of the permanent ice. The sheets, kept in place by sandbags, have been laid out every year since 2008 and are said to have reduced ice loss by 1/3. Now, the covers come off when temperatures drop at the start of ski season. Certainly some pretty pictures there. It's 6:29 p.m. and that is it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Power and Politics is up next, already in progress. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you and your family have a great night.